Hey, everybody, welcome to the special Thanksgiving edition of Alasquatch. And what's Thanksgiving without some guests? Some people to sit at the table and talk about stuff like Bigfoot, politics. I'm just kidding, just Bigfoot. So I've got some special guests lined up, and I'm going to start bringing them in one at a time in no particular order. This is just the order they showed up in. Uh, First, we've got all the way from Fairbanks, Alaska, we've got Jesse Desmond.
Hey.
Happy
Hi.
Thanksgiving. Hey.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Next, coming all the way up near Denali from Healy, we've got Norm.
Hey, everybody.
Everybody's like, Norm, like on Cheers. And we've got, coming up from Toke, we've got the Sasquatch tracker himself, Michael Thompson. There's Michael. All right. Have you got sound there, Michael? We can't hear you. You're going to have to write it down and hold it up to the screen. So he's going to work on that. We're going to get going here. The topic for tonight's discussion is what does Bigfoot eat? Let me see what do they consume? I tried to think of some things that maybe wouldn't. Michael, you're back. Still can't hear you. So I tried to think of some things that maybe I stayed away from, like obvious things like berries. You know, we've all heard the stories of the people out berry picking and they see the Bigfoot. And I pulled this out. This is Alaska's Wild Plants, a guide to Alaska's edible and healthful harvest. I actually picked this up at the Boreal Bigfoot Expo. And
I have it too.
And have been perusing it. And I tried to pick some selections out of here that maybe were things that I didn't realize were edible, or some things that maybe, you know, would kind of be available to Sasquatch out in the wild. And I thought, man, like what an awesome idea for a Thanksgiving episode. Food, you know, we're going into Thanksgiving, the holiday weekend's coming up here, and we're going to talk about what Bigfoot eats. And I asked you guys to, maybe bring some of your ideas about what Bigfoot eats, and we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to have to talk over you because you're talking too much. So,
you know what the short answer is, Beans?
What's that?
Do you know what the short answer is?
What's that? Whatever he wants?
Sasquatch eats whatever he wants.
Yep, I've heard that before. Michael, you got sound over there yet? So Michael's actually a deaf mute. He's actually one of the few deaf mute Sasquatch trackers out there. So
he specializes in audio.
Yeah. Don't make fun of him because he's overcoming adversity to follow his dream. So the book, the Alaska, and I need to give a disclaimer before we start shouting out plants that people can eat. This book says don't just run out and start eating this stuff. Like, make sure you do your good due diligence. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, don't take my word for it. And if I say like, oh, you can eat dandelions, like don't run out and eat a bunch of dandelions because Bean said so. You need to research and follow more credible avenues of wild plant preparation than myself. Many of these things that I'm about to talk about, there's instructions in the book on how to harvest them. Some of them aren't necessarily, you can't just pull it out of the ground and eat it. There's some preparation that goes into it. So please, use your brain. Don't just run out and grab a bunch of stuff and start eating it because Beans told you to. So nobody should listen to any advice that I give at any time. Michael, you're there?
I can hear you guys.
There he is.
Okay.
Hey, the Sasquatch tracker speaks.
Yeah, I had to switch headphones on. Something that I got a problem with the other set, so I'm on now, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, guys. So we're talking about food, Michael. We're talking about what's available out there in the wild for Bigfoot to eat. I've got some selections that I picked out of this Alaska Wild Plants book, but I mean, we're certainly not limited to plants. Anything you guys think of is open game. I'm particularly interested in like protein sources because obviously an animal the size of Sasquatch probably needs some protein. I remember when I first got into Bigfooting, there was a big, like a lot of the skeptics would say there's not enough calories in the woods, which I think is just ridiculous if you consider there's 1,000-pound moose and bear running around out there and gorillas. Obviously there are. Yeah, you don't hear that as much anymore. That was something that was kind of running around like in the Bigfoot forums around maybe the late 90s or so. You certainly don't hear that argument as much anymore, but I remember when I first started out, I heard it quite a bit. And one of the first things that I pulled out of the book here is something that I've seen quite a bit, especially around like Area A, coastal areas, and that's bull kelp. Are you guys familiar with bull kelp? It's a big, long, looks like a whip with a bulb on the end of it. And
I have bull kelp serrano hot sauce in my fridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little did I know, apparently it's a pretty good source of protein, and I believe vitamin A and C as well. And I believe, from what I understand, again, don't run out and start shoving bull kelp in your mouth, but I believe you can eat it raw, like just pick it up off the ground and chew on it. So that was something I did not realize. I've seen bull kelp all over the place, walking along the shoreline. Never thought once to pick it up and put it in my mouth. But maybe a hungry Sasquatch might.
I
It actually
recall.
makes really good pickles. There's a company out of I think they're out of Juneau or something. It's called Barnacle Foods, and they make bull kelp products. So they have like pickles and hot sauce and salsa and stuff. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. Norm, what were you going to say, bud?
I can recall a sighting, I believe it was from British Columbia, of Sasquatch at night walking inland carrying kelp.
That's interesting. I kind of like, I want to talk about plants kind of initially, but I want to get into like animals and hunting and stuff later. And I kind of want to touch on the fact how I personally, and through many of the sightings that I've read and researched, I don't remember ever seeing one about Bigfoot fishing. I've heard of them stealing fish that have already been caught, but I don't think I've ever seen one or heard one where Bigfoot was like acted like a bear, like scooping salmon out of a river or something.
I've heard stories of Sasquatch at the side of a river, like catching fish and also clamming.
Okay, and I've heard that thing clam, but I don't think I've ever heard the salmon one. So
I recall one
yeah.
sighting of salmon harvesting going on.
Yeah, I've only heard it like around some of the larger rivers and stuff like that really have like big salmon feeds going up. You know what I mean? It's like Copper River and Yukon and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll get into that here in a little bit. The other one I had that I see quite a bit around Area A and the coastline is ribbon kelp. Again, it's a
Right.
big source of protein apparently, and see it all the time. Never thought once that, hey, I'm going to pick that up, put it in my mouth, but could be a good source of protein for Sasquatch.
It also has a lot of phytonutrients and like iodine and all kinds of minerals and stuff like that. But a lot of times you have to like rinse it, otherwise it's kind of salty.
Yeah, that's one of the things that in the harvesting section of the book she talks about, especially with anything like the kelp, is to rinse it, or else it's going to be a salty snack. But she said sometimes that adds flavor, so sometimes that's good. One of the other sections, of course, this is the one that is most interesting pertaining to Bigfoot, is forests. And there's the spruce tips apparently that are edible. I know Alaska beer company they have like their winter ale or something that has like spruce tips in it. I don't remember particularly liking that one. But again, that's not something that I would necessarily think that I would just want to pick up off the ground and eat, but apparently you can prepare it and eat it.
High in vitamin C.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's best to eat them in the spring, it says. So that would be something they would probably start munching on, in the early spring, maybe before the salmon come and the rest of the plants are blooming.
Yeah, you want them when they're like a brighter green than the rest of the tree, and they're softer. So
Yeah,
they're kind of a
they get
citrusy kind of.
They get too pulpy,
Yeah.
too chewy and stocky, pulpy as time goes on. So definitely in the spring.
Yeah, and another one I didn't think about was birch sap. Apparently, birch sap is pretty good. I've never had it knowingly that I can think of.
You
but
ever
apparently,
had birch syrup or anything?
You
I
can
don't
buy
think
that.
yeah.
Available
Again,
in
I'm not big on it. Like I was thinking the other day about we're going to talk about like what kind of human foods do we think Bigfoot might like? And I remember, wasn't there a video or something where a thermal video where like there was a candy bar on a stump and the Bigfoot was trying, and it was like a Zagnut bar. I think it was in North Carolina or something. And I was like, I'm a 45-year-old man, and I don't think I've ever seen a freaking Zagnut bar like in the wild, like anywhere. Like I don't remember ever going into a store, because sometimes things are kind of regional, like it's on the East Coast or the West Coast, and I'm like, I've never seen a Zagnut bar in my life other than like on TV.
I have
rant over. I'm gonna get if you go to my website and look at my about page, it has my address on there. People are going to start sending me Zagnut bars from them.
You'll be sponsored by Zagnut.
Bigfoot's favorite candy bar.
Yeah.
Another one, this is high in vitamin C, is cottonwood buds, which I had no idea. And this was a big surprise for me. Devil's Club.
Yeah, I've heard you can eat that. We don't really get Devil's Club so much up around Fairbanks, I don't think.
Well, I've got a shitload of it here.
Yeah.
I can send you some. Apparently, you have to peel the shoots before you can eat it because it's all prickly. Yeah. But I was just like, that stuff is everywhere here. I mean, I can't walk into my backyard past the tree line without getting snagged on it. It's thick here. But I would have never thought that Devil's Club was on the menu for anybody other than maybe some bugs or something, because it's so prickly. If you don't know what Devil's Club is, like Google it. It's very pointy. Everything's pointy about it. The leaves are pointy, the stalks are pointy, and there's a funny scene, and I think it's the outtakes from In Search of the Port Chatham Hairy Man, where Steven's like standing and he reaches out to like steady himself and he grabs a stalk of Devil's Club and he's like, oh.
Yeah, every hiker does it eventually. What about fireweed and chiming bells?
I have fireweed on here.
Yes.
I don't have chiming. What are chiming bells?
Chiming bells, little blue flowers. They're very good in the spring, like fireweed. Just eat the vegetation. I eat both of those myself as I'm wandering around.
Yeah, if it's in the book, I probably saw it and was like, I don't know what that is, and just kept going.
Might be under Mertensia. I could be wrong.
And what I do have on here is pushki.
Pushki?
Yeah, cow parsnip.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like Devil's Club. I never I had never really dealt with it before. And I remember when I was working at the PD, I went to this call where this guy had gotten stabbed. And I know I just said, it's like, yeah, there was a guy that got stabbed one time, and I'm just going to talk about this. And we were looking for the knife, and it was in a campground, like a wooded area. And it was summer. So I'm like wearing short sleeves. I got like my baton out, and I'm like beating through this tall grass looking for this knife that we think got tossed in this field. And I get back to the police department, and I look down, and I've got like these red dots all over my arms. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, am I going to die? What is this? And the dispatcher's like, you got into some pushki. And I'm like, what is pushki, and why is it doing this to me? I didn't itch. It just like, I just had these red blotches all over my arms. And that was my first experience with pushki. But apparently it's called cow parsnip, and it's a lot like devil's club. And if you touch it, it's going to get you. It didn't make me itch, but I've heard it makes other people itch. I'm not really susceptible to poison ivy either. Like, I've never had a reaction to it. And apparently, much like devil's club, you have to peel the stalk, and it's like the inner part, I guess, that's edible that you can eat. And again, don't run out and just shove pushki in your mouth. There's like some preparation, some research that needs to be done. So don't take my word for it. But again, that's something that could easily, like a Bigfoot that lives in the woods and is living off the land. That's something that they could easily probably incorporate into their diet.
Stinging nettles.
Go ahead.
I saw nettles in the book, but I didn't include them. But yeah, that's another one I think that's something that's wouldn't come to mind easily when you were thinking about edible plants.
Well, we have quite a few like mushrooms up here as well. So I mean, that includes chaga, and which is like super nutrient, and it's a major antioxidant. So I mean, you can use it you can eat it, you can make it as a tea, that sort of thing. And it only grows on birch trees. And the further north you go, the more antioxidants it contains.
Yeah, there's no mushrooms in the book. There was a gentleman that came out to the cabin one time that was very knowledgeable of mushrooms, and I remember him asking me, like, have you ever seen any morel mushrooms up here? I'm like, no, never. And him, because that's like the one mushroom that I know what it is. And him and the owner, they went up on the hill one day, and they came back with just he had a big like sack full of mushrooms. I don't remember what kind they were. They weren't morel. They were a bunch of different kinds, but I was like, I had no idea there were many like edible mushrooms around here.
Lots.
And he was telling me, I guess he did that a lot in California where he was from. And he was like, you can go out in the woods and pick a sack like this in California and like make a lot of money that way.
Shaggy manes are another one up here around Toke.
Which one?
Shaggy mane mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's very popular around here.
I think we have some lion's mane or something up here as well. And I want to say chicken of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And we have puffballs, but they don't get very big. But as long as they're solid and white all the way through, you can eat those.
Yeah, I think puffballs were mentioned in the book, but
yeah.
I don't know. Are they considered a mushroom, or are they? I think there might be something else.
They're mushroom.
Yeah, and then go ahead.
They're fun guys.
Fun guys. And we've got moving into like wetlands. There's I had to mention the bog cranberry because Thanksgiving. I don't think I've ever seen any up here though. Maybe you guys have seen some up in the tundra or something.
Well, we have a lot of lingonberries, and we have a lot of high bush up here.
Yeah, there's like blueberries, mossberries, salmonberries, just all kinds of berries here.
Yeah, and a lot of them tend to look kind of similar. They tend to taste kind of similar to me as well. Like there's like the what do they call it? It looks like a blueberry, but it's like twisted, something like the when it grows, there's like a little twist in the stem or something.
I think
And
it's a service berry or something.
no, serviceberry is actually, that's also called a Saskatoon, and that's actually related to apples. It's a berry and it's related to apples.
I'll have to.
And that, I think that was kind of like dandelions, like it was brought over when people came through on the Alcan or something.
Yeah, there's a ton of berries up here, and that's why I didn't really mention any of them, because there's just so many, and there's so many stories about Bigfoot being seen by berry pickers and other people.
Yeah.
So I was like, we'll talk about something maybe a little different. And then there's mare's tail, which I have seen and never thought about it being edible. That's a hold on. Jesse is very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
That's a terrible pun. And then you've got dandelion, which I think most people know is probably edible. My dogs love dandelions; they eat the shit out of those things.
Well,
My dad made dandelion wine.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I was never like young enough to drink it. I'm sure he probably gave me a taste. I don't remember anything about it, but he was big into wine making there for a while, and he had this corner of the room, and it looked like a freaking laboratory with like milk jugs and stoppers with like tubes coming out of them, and one of his big projects was dandelion wine. And then we've got clovers, which, I mean, they're clovers, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the American plantain, which is a super versatile plant. You can chew it, make a poultice out of it. You can eat it. It's everywhere. I didn't think it was up here, and I saw a video on it, and I started looking for it, and I'm like, yeah, it is up here. It's kind of actually everywhere. It's even here in my yard.
it's probably in your lawn.
Yeah. And that's it about as far as I have for like plants. If you guys have anything else plant related, now's the time to bring it up.
You know, we have a lot of herbs and stuff that grow naturally. You know, we have all these like new distilleries and breweries, and I think there's a couple wineries and stuff in the state too. But I don't know why no one's making absinthe, because we have naturally growing wormwood up here. I don't think Bigfoot's going to want to chew on something really super bitter like wormwood, but you never know. I think it can get rid of parasites or something like that. And we have Labrador tea that grows around. They might want to consume something like that at some point. We have, I don't know if our willow has the same medicinal qualities as like some other varieties. Because I know that sometimes there's like aspirin qualities associated with willow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it does. They say if you chew willow bark, it's good for like headaches and stuff.
Polides has reported witnesses as seeing Sasquatch eat willow by pulling the branches through its mouth and stripping the leaves off.
Yeah.
That was in tribal Bigfoot, I believe.
Okay. What else?
Reindeer moss.
Oh yeah.
We have a lot of that. It's kind of acidic for people and gives you, stomach ache or heartburn. But a lot of people do eat it, though. I don't think it would be unfit for a Sasquatch.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like, we don't know anything about how their digestive system works. They might be able to eat things that we certainly can't. There's lots of animals out there that can eat things that we can't.
Yeah, we always tend to think that, because Sasquatch is, described as so human-like, that we always think that they would have the same kind of a digestive system or, same reactions to plants and taste buds and things like that as we do. But you're right, Beans, it could be totally opposite.
Yeah. I tend to think that I think they're basically, they'll eat whatever's available. They're like a predator of opportunity if they have to be, scavenger of opportunity if they have to be. But I think they subsist mainly on probably vegetation, with the occasional kill, with a carcass or whatever they can get their hands on. But I think they can survive just fine, probably without a ton of hunting. Like I said, especially in the coastal areas where you have the bull kelp, stuff like that can add extra protein. I think they could probably get by with maybe only, having to kill just enough to get by. Although, Norm, you were saying something the other day about how there was like a moratorium on, was it sheep hunting, and the numbers never rose. Like
Yeah, in Denali National Park. Denali National Park was actually formed in response to market hunting, wiping out sheep and, to a lesser extent, caribou populations in the park. But it was formed in, I believe, 1917, and the Dall sheep never recovered. They've just stayed low population-wise since then, which I find interesting. I can't explain it adequately.
Yeah, if there's nothing actively hunting, well, I mean, I guess there are things hunting them, bear and wolves probably, but without the added stress of people coming in and hunting them, you think the numbers would rise somewhat.
You would think. So I often wonder about that. Still on the vegetable topic, out of the 2 piles of scat I found that I suspect were Sasquatch, one was filled with fibrous material. I checked it, I knocked it apart a little bit, expecting hair, but it was fibers, like little fibers of willow or twigs or something in it, although it was shaped in a very human-like way. So I suspect in that case that whatever it was definitely working on fibrous material, maybe inner bark of willow or aspens even. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I've heard more than one account of the running the branch through the lips and peeling the leaves and stuff off. There's a gentleman on, I think, of the Boggy Creek Monster, the small town monster documentary on Boggy Creek. He mentions that. I believe it's mentioned in the William Rowe encounter.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
And I've always wondered, in those instances where people see them do that, are they tearing the branch off and doing that, or are they just pulling the branch over and doing that? Because I would think if some people were walking around and they looked down and they saw a bunch of branches laying on the ground with no leaves on them, that would probably be something they would notice. But if you saw it on a tree, you'd probably just think, well, it's probably a moose or something.
Well, the one case I read recently in Paulides, it had actually torn the branch off of the bush or shrub. So I think that's something we should look for. I think that would be an interesting sign to find.
There you go. That's something I've never really thought about before until now. That's something that probably we should start keeping our eyes out for. And we've got somebody else at the door here. We got to go see who it is. We got another Thanksgiving guest here.
Who could it be?
Oh,
it's Heidi.
So another plant that Sasquatch might be willing to eat is cattails. As long as you know how to eat them.
Yes, that's actually in the book as well as cattails. I think I knew they were edible though. I've never actually had them myself.
Yeah, I think the tubers and the flowering part. I think
they're
both edible.
But I think you have to get it at the right time of the season. Otherwise, it'll just like you can.
Yeah, but apparently you can use those as tinder as well. Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting. I think maybe, hopefully, Norm, we've planted that seed in some people's heads to look for some sticks with all the leaves gnawed off or chewed off. The guy, it always struck me, the guy in the Boggy Creek documentary, he called it skinning the cat. I don't know why he said that, but he's just because he puts it in there and just pulls the leaves off. But yeah, that's something I've never really thought to look out for, is to like look for limbed, or I guess leaved limbs.
Yep. You got to start looking for that.
Okay, so another thing that they might go after, what about like crops?
Like
Crops?
I mean, that's not something that grows naturally up here, but we do have some farming communities up here, and I know up here locally in Fairbanks, there was a Sasquatch that was sighted years ago, going like collecting food and stuff out of Calypso Farms's crop of whatever they were growing. That they kind of have like a general garden kind of crop, and then they sell it the farmers markets and stuff. So I don't know what exactly it was going after, but I could see a Sasquatch stealing a cabbage or something.
Corn.
Yeah.
Well,
And they
Yeah.
put a lot of grain and cover crops up here too. So yeah.
well, and you've heard like how moose eat like pumpkins and stuff when people leave them out. I'm sure that Sasquatch would be opportunistic about certain types of things that they can't normally get in their diets, like just like a moose or anything would.
Yeah, I heard that they're really partial to like sweet feed for like
Yeah.
horses and stuff.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I've wondered if Sasquatch, at least up here in the northern territories like Canada and Alaska, I wonder if like they make food caches. Some, you know, the way other mammals do, and even some of the indigenous people, you know, some of the tribes, native tribes here in Alaska will bury even meats like a seal and things like that. They'll bury them for months at a time and basically let them ferment in the ground, frozen, and dig them out later to eat. So I've often wondered if because of our long winters, they may do that, and maybe they even use things like tree structures to mark where to find those things.
Yeah, and there's a report in Raincoat Sasquatch of a bear hunter that shot a bear, went to go look for it, couldn't find it, and actually found it like under, like it had been buried. And I always wondered if that was maybe what had happened, is a Bigfoot had come along, found it, and then was maybe saving it for later, or I don't know, maybe the bear was too heavy for it to like get away quickly with, so he's like, I'll just shove him under here and come back and get him later. But yeah, I think they would just about have to store something for the winters up here.
Yeah, if they
Yeah.
don't do like intermittent hibernation or something of that nature, I would think they would absolutely have to.
Yeah, and there's been reports of like nut crushing stations where there's like a rock and a bunch of crushed nuts, but the nuts are gone, just the shells remain. You know, maybe those got taken away and stored somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And crustaceans, things like that, you know, or clams, you know, things like that out on the coast, in the coastal areas like Cordova and Valdez and you know, kind of down in those areas. I would think that they would store those away too, probably as it got colder.
Yeah, I think they probably have to have some kind, maybe not a huge cave full of food, but probably something to get them through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be also, I think, probably the time when they rely more on hunting and killing and is in wintertime, when they don't have the natural resources like vegetation and stuff around.
Yep.
Or the beach.
Yeah, the beach is a good year-round source of food.
Yeah.
Christina says, do you think maybe they migrate further south? You know, I don't necessarily think they might. I mean, I guess it depends on where they're at. I particularly don't think that they migrate, especially near the coast. I mean, where are they going to go? if they're like at the bottom, like in Port Chatham, when they're at the southern tip of the Kenai Peninsula, there's nowhere to go. They can't go anywhere else. They're already gone south. They can't go south any further.
I could see them following like like the caribou herds or something like that.
Oh yeah, there's some seasonal migration. They're taking advantage of
Yeah.
that. When herds come through, just like wolfpack or coyotes, they'll follow the herd for a few days and take they'll scavenge wolf kills or just outright steal, let the wolves do the hard work, and then steal the whole animal.
Yeah, that's called
Same with go ahead.
intimidation
Yes.
scavenger. Yeah.
I know that there's an awful lot of sightings up near Bethel and things, especially around hunting season in the fall. I think it was back in 2010. There was a family up there that had a cabin outside of Bethel, and they reported several years in a row where they would go out to this cabin around the September time of year to hunt caribou, and they would not see just one individual, but up to 3 at a time out there stalking the herds. And when you live as far north and to the west as Bethel, you know, they might migrate to follow the caribou herds, but they wouldn't they wouldn't be able to make it far enough south. They'd have to live in that particular region pretty much year round. I mean, they might come further south into the interior, but at that point, you know, the climate's going to be relatively the same. So
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
Do you think Bigfoot could take on like a muskox and win?
I think it depends on the muskox and the Bigfoot.
mm-hmm.
If the Bigfoot's in his prime and the muskox is maybe old or young, probably.
I'd say they could probably get a calf. I don't know about a full-grown adult in its prime, though. I actually just went to the muskox farm down in Matsu Valley this summer, and the males down there, they liked to show off for the crowd. They were waiting until people weren't looking, and then they would charge and, you know, butt their heads against those steel fences, and the whole fence would rattle like it was gonna fall over. So
I guess for anyone that's listening, like muskox are primarily found in like the western part of the state, so we don't really have them in Fairbanks or anything like that, unless they're at like the muskox. Like we have the Lars station, Large Animal Research Station, that has muskox, and I think Anchorage has something similar to that.
Yeah, we saw one after the first Boreal Bigfoot Expo when Adam and Steven and I drove up to Dead Horse. On the way back, we actually saw one on the side of the road, and Adam almost got emotional because that was what he wanted to see. He wanted to see a muskox, and we just happened to see one, and he got out, and we got some good video of it, and he almost had a little British tear in his eye. He was like, "Oh, I wanted to see one, and there it is." But
Wow, that's
how?
cool.
So we got a question: how many calories do you think the hairy man needs to ingest every day? Probably not as many as you would think. I guess it kind of depends on their activity levels.
I was hoping I could Google something and find like
well, bears
some
bears
information here.
bears have an average of like 5,000 calories a day, and of course bears up here can eat probably 4 times as much as that when they are stocking up for winter, you know, with the salmon and everything. So you know, if you're comparing like say to a black bear, I would say it's probably a similar calorie intake.
I agree to
Yeah,
that. I
close.
was just going to guess and say 4,000
Mhm.
easily.
I was just looking. I found for a bison, it said that the average is about 10,000 a day.
Red Grossinger tackles that directly in his book. And I can't recall what he said. I think it was somewhere around 9,000 calories for an adult male. And I would estimate for a full grown male, 10,000 up to 20,000 in the winter. where you have to be burning calories all the time to stay warm. It's just my guess. So what do we know?
Yeah.
Especially if they're in the areas where it gets 40 below for days or weeks at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heidi, I wanted to ask you. We were talking about it before you were here, and I was telling the guys, the panel here, I was like, I don't think I've ever had a sighting report where they talked about Bigfoot fishing or pulling fish out of water. I've heard them stealing fish that were already caught from fish camps and stuff, and drying racks and all kinds of stuff like that. But I don't think I've ever had a report or read a report where somebody saw them pulling salmon out of a stream or something.
Well, actually, now this isn't in Alaska. This was in the Midwest, but one of the reports that I had collected while I was living in the area was a gentleman was out catfishing at night, and he was pulling his boat back up to his boat slip, and he had seen an individual on the shore, and he said it was wading in the water, acting like it was trying to catch fish in the water when he saw it. That particular individual happened to be a white individual, which was one of the more unique sighting encounters that I've gathered from down there. But up here,
yeah. Well, I just think it's odd. I mean, that we haven't had any reports of any, or even a spawned out salmon. Just you think they would just wade in there and just scoop them up and just take off with them.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything like that.
I thought I heard a couple reports out of like the Bethel area.
well, and
That's
I've-
untrue.
and I have heard of them like there was some people inquiring this summer in regards to sightings of them taking fish out of fish wheels, which I guess would constitute stealing them, but they were scooping them out of fish wheels on the river. So
Sure. Fish wheels, nets.
mhm.
They love to take other people's fish.
Yeah.
Stringers.
So what we've deduced here is that Bigfoot is a crappy fisherman, and he can only catch fish that people already caught for him.
And yet they're so territorial when fisher people come into their area. They tend to get more pissed off at them than they do about hunters. Which is
Well, and I
interesting.
also wonder if it might also have to do that they don't want to. I mean, wherever there's going to be thick fish runs, there's probably a large population of bear active in the area. And we've actually talked before about how bear and Sasquatch possibly avoid one another because they're both basically like apex predators. They leave each other alone unless absolutely provoked.
Maybe they just cut out the middleman and eat the bear after it eats the fish.
There's a few reports of that.
Mm,
Well, think about it. Maybe they just maybe they don't want us fishing because they want the bears to fatten up and eat all that fish, and then in the winter, that's the wintertime snack. They'll go find the bear den and eat the bear while it's hibernating.
mhm. Well, and I wonder if Sasquatch up here, I would think that they would possibly predate on things like porcupine and beaver and things like that. Things that kind of have slightly rich and fatty meats to them, might be fairly easy for them to catch compared to us, and things like that. I hear that porcupine meat is actually quite good. I've never had it myself, but
Yeah, I think they probably do eat porcupine. I mean, if they've got the opposable thumbs for it, I mean, they can probably manipulate it to a point where they can get in there without getting poked too bad. I mean, all they got to do is wob him with a log or something, and then turn him over and get to the meaty parts.
mhm.
Hey,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Go ahead, Norm.
I was just saying hello to Ryan. I saw he had a comment about the calories.
Cliff had an interesting story in his presentation at one of the Bigfoot conferences I saw him speak at, and he said there were two this happened in two separate locations, very far, like one in the Midwest, one on maybe the East Coast or something. And they had found in two separate places mice or little rodents wrapped up in like a leaf ball, almost like I don't know, like a little snack or something. And it was in two different places, two separate occasions.
Rat.
And he actually had pictures of one of them, and I thought that was interesting. Like, is that maybe he's saving it for later? Is that like a little cache there? He's going to wrap this in a leaf and save it for later. Is that some kind of preservation technique or something? I don't know.
Appetizers by Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Well, there were those couple of interesting kills out. I think that was in Delta Junction area, Jesse. That were the moose kills, where it was just the head and the spinal cords, and they were laid side by side, kind of in a odd way. And I have wondered if Sasquatch might have areas where they basically strip the bodies of whatever their kills are and then leave the carcasses behind like that.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that myself. I would say that they'd probably do that with like caribou, because caribou's a little lighter, and they travel in huge numbers. They're probably easier to capture, whereas a moose is a lot bigger. And I don't know if I had a choice between going up against a moose and a caribou, I'd probably go up against caribou myself.
Yeah.
They're a little less dangerous, I think.
Well, and that was the year that we had all that snow dump on us, and the moose were gathering in like record-sized herd numbers because they just had nowhere to go, and a lot of moose were starving because they couldn't get enough food. But I would imagine if Bigfoot did hunt big game like that, they would probably be opportunistic and pick out the sickly ones, or wait for calving season and picking off newborns.
I think Bigfoot
I think Jesse froze up.
here,
There she goes.
and I don't know, we have like rabbits and stuff like that up here too. Smaller animals that might be easier to catch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of a few encounters where they were seen like picking rock, like on a hillside or something, like digging through rocks looking for voles or
They do that with ground squirrels too.
Yeah,
Ground squirrels and marmots, they'll dig for those.
And ptarmigan are stupid birds. You could probably throw a rock at one and kill it because it just freezes, it just stands there. So
Yeah. Same with grouse. Grouse are not the brightest.
Yeah, their function in life is to be a food source for other animals. That's why they're easy. That's why they're easy to kill. Since we're talking about birds, I think a lot about stealing eggs, especially along marshes and lakes and ponds, where you've got ducks and geese, swans, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a big. That would be an excellent source of protein. I don't know about stealing eggs out of nests up in trees, but I would not rule that out.
yeah. We have the sand-hilled cranes down here on the peninsula, and those nest on the ground.
Yes.
Those are that's also the number one suspect for the Mothman. Everybody always busts that out. It's a sandhill crane.
I thought about insects though too, like in that are burrowed into bark and trees and under logs and in sod and stuff like that. If they'll grub hunt basically for insects, especially in winter when there's insects that do basically hibernate inside the bark of trees and things. It's probably not a lot of protein, but it's better than eating the bark itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
I
have
found
frogs
tree
too.
trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's frogs. I found a tree trunk torn apart next to a big boy trail, as I call it. Could have been a bear. I don't know, but it was ripped apart pretty good. I think they were looking for grubs, whatever got into it.
Hmm.
You know, when I was growing up, I'd always like a bunch of collections of stories and stuff in there. And I recall in a number of books, there was stories of like Bigfoot coming out to like people who had like pies cooling outside, or people cooking outside and stealing stuff, pie on the windowsill kind of a thing.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Mm-hmm.
Nice image.
Yeah. Well, remember the
Thanks.
Ruby Creek, where it turned over the barrels of with the salted fish in them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, crappy fishermen gotta wait till they're already caught.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder if they have their own ways of preparing meat. Like, I've never heard of them like smoking meat, but I don't know. There's got to be some other ways that they could like dry out the meat, essentially like making jerky or something, and then they can store it. I mean,
Well, how do they keep the rodents and stuff out of it?
Well, that's why I was thinking, they have food caches the way the indigenous people did. At least here in the Northern Territories, once it starts getting to a certain cold point in the fall, they can bury it in the ground and it will basically, keep it frozen or cool. And it will more than likely, if depending on how deep they bury it, and I would imagine they would bury it deep enough to where other scavengers couldn't get a hold of it. And they probably have just stronger constitutions than us, so even if the meat is a little bad and a human couldn't ingest it, they probably would have the ability to.
and I hear that a lot of times they try and find like a cave or something. So in like the Wrangell St. Elias area, there's a lot of stories of them living in caves in the mountains.
Yep.
In groups, So
They have to be in the winter in the interior. They must have shelter. Even covered with hair, it's just too cold to be outside exposed all the time.
Well, it's a group effort too in the winter because it takes, your chances are always going to increase when you're in a group for survival. So any type of group shelter where you're conserving, energy, and some are hunting, some are staying in and staying warm and taking shifts, if you want to call it that, on what they're doing there. So that tree structure definitely with some sort of covering, maybe caribou hide. That seems to be kind of odd, but I could see more vegetation type insulation being used.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's something that I've actually heard about down as well, but I've thought about how it could be applied here. Is that making basically living live wells for fish, where they basically rock off a portion of a lake or a creek where it's shallow. They catch fish, they put it into this basically a makeshift live well, and they keep them there until they need them, and they just go scoop them out and take them to eat, or if they have some manner of prepping the fish.
Has anybody found one of those?
Down in the South where it was being speculated, they had come across spring heads where the spring was flowing down into a creek channel, and the spring head had been walled off to make a small pond, and fish had been brought up and put into that area, which they normally would not be able to access. So it was obviously somebody had purposely done it.
Wow.
Yeah, in pretty remote areas.
That's interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So
There's a question in the chat about hibernating. I don't necessarily think about full-time hibernation, October to mid-April, but there's definitely periods of low activity. It's a feast or famine type of an environment, so they take advantage of a caribou kill or some roadkill, and then they can hold up for 4, 5, 6, 7 days at a time before they need to eat again. So there's not necessarily a true hibernation, but maybe more like a torpor, like a 3 or 4 day type of hibernation, or not necessarily sleeping, but low activity. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, there's a report out of Iliamna where a gentleman saw one, and he described it as having a pot belly, and it was a wintertime sighting, and I always assumed that maybe it had fattened up for the winter, but somebody else mentioned like, well, maybe it was pregnant, and I guess that's a possibility too. But I'd always kind of just thought that they probably did like the bears, and then kind of towards the end of summer, they just fattened up as much as they could, and then like Michael was saying, they'll hold up for as long as they can until they absolutely have to go out, and they probably do most of their hunting in the winter, and that's what they'll do is they'll get something and then live off of it for a few days, and then do it all over again.
Well, and if you think like
right on that.
If you think like cows and horses and other animals that are kind of herd type animals, they kind of have a sixth sense about when bad weather is coming, and like they'll turn their back to the rain, or they'll lay down in the rain, or they'll seek shelter if there's a bad thunderstorm coming. I'm sure that they're able to detect changes in the weather to where they're going to know if there's a steep drop in temperature. So when we have those cold snaps, those -40 cold snaps or what have you that last for a few days or a week or two at a time, they may go into a hibernative stasis or low activity stasis and hole up together if they do live in family groups, and just wait out the cold.
Do you guys think that Sasquatch utilizes hot springs in the winter for drinkable water?
If they have, well, I don't know about drinkable water, but if they have access to a hot spring with steam, I don't see why they wouldn't utilize that.
Yeah.
Like the macaques in Japan. Is it macaques?
I think something like that. Yeah.
Almost every animal in Yellowstone does that over the winter too.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't really found a whole bunch of reports about Bigfoot utilizing hot springs, and I just know that we have a handful of them up here.
Well, we did have right before that, the first expo we hosted, we had that one fellow that talked about seeing one cross the road on their way to a hot spring just north of Fairbanks. And, it was, I think, about 100 miles north of Fairbanks or so, but they were actually on their way to go visit a hot spring when they saw the creature cross the road behind them. And that was, I think, in December. I think that it was December or January when they had that encounter. So,
so Rob Roy says that he can't get his work computer, mic, and camera to work. I'd invited him to this. He said he was going to be here, but once again, he chooses work over his friends. So,
bye, Rob.
Yeah, I wanted him to tell his story about Ron Moorhead and the quartz eating Bigfoot. So we'll have to save that for another day, I guess. But
Well, there are supposedly lots of Bigfoot sightings around graves or graveyards. I hear that narrative a lot down in the South. And it's kind of interesting. I haven't heard much about it up here in Alaska, but I do think it's kind of odd that people would be in cemeteries or something and supposedly have some kind of phenomenon occur that they attribute to Sasquatch activity.
That's an interesting point because there's a story that Stephen Major tells about area in Canada where there's a burial ground, a native burial ground that is protected by a Bigfoot. And I always thought like, oh, well, the Bigfoot, like if that's true, then the Bigfoot, there has to be some kind of weird, like supernatural element to it where the Bigfoot knows it's got to protect this graveyard. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, maybe the Bigfoot just likes to eat on the dead bodies and he's protecting a food source.
Oh, that's a little morbid, but
Yeah. You got to be a cop to figure that one out.
I guess
we have a lot of stories of giants up here, and the giants are reported to be cannibals.
Yeah.
But I haven't really heard a whole bunch about that in regards to Bigfoot up here. So there's
if you talk to
go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say Mr. Roll out there in Dutch Harbor was talking about how they believe that if they take you, they're taking you to eat you. That's why you don't answer whistles or anything in the woods.
Yeah, I've always thought that for the most part they leave us alone, but if they're really unless we really screw up, like any other animal, if you get around them and they're young or a food source, or if they're really old and having a hard time feeding themselves, then maybe they might decide to mess with humans. But I never really thought like that they could maybe get into a cemetery or something and eat dead people. This took a dark turn.
What's on the surface of the cemetery? The people leave flowers and things like that. Yeah. So when I think of the cemetery thing, it's the easy access to vegetation. It's left as memorials. The flowers and the wreaths and things like that.
Well, what about things like if they need high protein sources? I see Boondock Nomad in the chat talking about how they're massive creatures. They need to have that continual protein source through the winter. What if they take advantage of the opportunity of other animals that are hibernating, like bear? And bear, when they're denning and hibernating in the winter, they're also having their cubs at that point in time as well. There's also beaver in their beaver lodges will hole up inside their lodges, and those could be potentially fairly easy targets for a predator that is looking for a large protein source.
Well, at the same time, we're assuming they need a lot of protein. They might be like protein camels, and they may only need a little bit of protein every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
We're assuming their metabolism.
Yeah, I do have a hard time seeing them as like hard grass eaters. Most animals that survive more strictly on a grass and grains diet have to have multiple stomachs or a specialized digestive system for that. Like if you look at the panda, for example, that eat strictly bamboo, they actually get very little nutrition from their food, even though it's very odd that they've specifically evolved to eat that, but their digestive system is very inefficient because they can't glean a lot of nutrients out of it. So I think they would absolutely have to at least, be omnivorous. And the ones up here, I would think would have to probably have a higher protein diet than those in the South for the winter.
Yeah, I mean, it could be we're not even like it could be something like they eat vegetation 99% of the time, and then they only like during a full moon, a hunter's moon, do they actually like go out and hunt and get protein. So they may
Yeah.
only eat protein, every once in a while.
I don't know if that's really how it would be. The animals that really feast primarily on just plants, like koalas or something, or sloths, they don't move very fast. And Bigfoot is not a slow creature from what we've been able to gather from sightings and stuff. They move pretty well for being a big creature. So I think they would have to have a higher protein content to their diet, proteins and fats.
If you look at things like, for example, deer that are on in Scotland, some of the deer have been known to eat birds and bird eggs because the grasses on the moorlands there are so poor in nutrition that they actually have to eat deer or bird eggs to add extra protein into their system. So that has been observed in deer there. So
I'll do you one better, Heidi. The Body Farm in Tennessee, they've caught deer on the trail cams there eating dead human bodies.
yeah, well, see, there you go.
Yeah.
So if a deer has to resort to that kind of thing, I would think that something as large as a Sasquatch is going to absolutely need to have some kind of meat factored into their diet.
Hunter-gatherer societies, starting at the equator, they're very heavy on vegetative matter, but the further north you go, the larger and larger the component of animal foods. And you look at our own Inuit. Before we showed up, they were pretty much just carnivores.
Yeah.
Berries in the summer, but I would think the Alaskan interior boreal Bigfoot, particularly in winter, is almost exclusively a carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
And being selective on what they're eating, not just having the a hind quarter or front quarter, but eating organ meat that's nutrient dense. So they're going to go for that first because it's more bang for the buck right there, and then the other things with hauling back the back straps and things like that, of course.
And they probably also go after marrow.
Yes, definitely, because they find crushed bones. So,
yep.
Yeah, I've heard several accounts of people finding kill sites where the bones were like snapped open and some were missing the marrow. Yeah.
Yep. It's a delicacy, a treat.
So as far as hunting goes, I mean, do you think they're pretty much just like WWF hands-on, or do you think they try to utilize some primitive tool use like throwing rocks or maybe using a large log or stick or something to either hit an animal or to trip it up?
I've actually wondered about some of the stranger tree structures that have been found, if they possibly use tree structures as perhaps a type of ambushing tool or trap, where they could herd maybe a caribou individual or a deer or something into a trap where it's kind of corralled or cornered in and easier for them to actually get a hold of and take down. I've actually been watching some of the shows that have come up here more recently on the networks, and they're finding odd tree structures where limbs are kind of balanced on other tree stumps. And to me, they look like pine marten snare traps without a snare attached to it. But it's kind of what they remind me of. So
Rob's with us.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
From the world famous Bigfoot Art Gallery, we have Rob Roy Menzies.
I made it. God, I was having problems setting up my microphone and my camera weren't working, but I finally got it.
Hey, while you're here, since you're here, I was telling these guys, I was like, I wanted you to come on and tell us about the quartz eating Bigfoot. If you could just touch on that real quick.
The what?
The quartz eating Bigfoot and Ron
Oh,
story.
quartz eating. Yes. I heard through another person that a witness watched a family or a couple Bigfoots eating quartz.
The mineral?
Yeah, like a rock, like actually
Wow.
gnawing on it. And which makes no sense to me.
See, I've wondered, like, were they eating it or did they just put it? Because I've wondered
I don't
sometimes that
know.
Bigfoot will carry around
What they
rocks in
said.
their mouth because they don't have pockets. And I think like chimpanzees and some gorillas have been known to like store things in their mouth.
Isn't quartz like this one of the second hardest stones out there or something? It has a real high density number, right? Like it's hard, like not as hard as diamonds. I don't know how they'd be able to eat it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, maybe they were less trying to eat it as they were like sucking on it. Like, what if the
That's what I
quartz was embedded in other types of rock that has other types of mineral? Because a lot of times quartz is bonded with other stones and minerals, in the
like a salt
ground.
lick.
Yeah, like a salt lick, exactly.
Even the lichen on the stones, I would think
Yeah,
too.
That's a good point, Michael.
Yeah. Oh wow, I'm hearing like echoes or something.
Oh,
No, we're not hearing anything on our end. It's
Can
just,
you guys
it's just
hear
you,
me?
Rob. It's just you.
Let's just leave. Where's my? I just get a sign up.
Well, we thought we were going to have Michael do that earlier. He didn't have any
I don't know what's going on. I'm hearing
audio
the
at all.
conversation now.
Yeah, silica from the quartz rock. Yeah, that's a great point, December. Yeah, things like that. There are other minerals that they might not get from other parts of their diet that they might, I don't know, find on a rock. Geese have been known to swallow stones to actually help them digest food in their stomachs, harder food in their stomachs, and things like that. I don't know. It's definitely weird, a weird one.
Oh, there you go, Rob Roy. Do you have YouTube on in the background?
I don't know. I'm hearing all kinds of voices here.
Will you just do whatever those voices tell you to do, Rob?
I can. You're all talking at once. It's weird. I don't know where this audio is coming from, but anyway, the story is with the quartz. Mr. Ron Moorhead came in here, and I told him about that, and he said that sounds about right because gold is a conductive conduit, and something to do with that, something to do with the energy in the gold. So that was from Moorhead.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of interesting. But that's something weird I heard. I don't know.
That's one of those, it's
Maybe
quantum.
that's one of those scratch your head things. I don't
We're
know.
just gonna.
I don't know what
It's like in all the movies now. It used to be everything was like DNA or everything was nuclear there for a while. Like all the monsters
Right.
were nuclear, and then they were DNA or not DNA. Yeah, it was DNA. Like all the monsters and the creatures were created through DNA, and now it's all going to be. Now it's quantum. Quantum's the big unknown. So it's all quantum.
Yeah, Ron fell right into it. He thought it all made sense. The actual chewing on or eating or chewing or sucking on a piece of quartz with gold. He said, "Oh, that actually makes sense."
Well, there's
Well, I'm glad it makes sense to him. But anyway,
well, there's an interesting thing when you are iron deficient.
Yeah.
You can actually get a craving for eating dirt. It actually happened to my aunt once. She had an unbelievable craving to eat dirt, and she couldn't understand why. She went to the doctors and was diagnosed as being iron deficient. And when you
Huh.
suffer iron deficiencies and things, you'll start craving things that will help, bring that into your body, and you can, derive iron from dirt. So maybe, maybe it's if they're lacking a certain type of thing that they need, in their body.
I mean,
At
I
least
guess
it was dirt and not blood.
people
Yeah.
will use like
Yeah,
colloidal
I don't know. Maybe
silver and
it's something
stuff
along
like
the lines
that.
of that. But according to Ron knows all about the energy and all the gold and the trees and the Bigfoot's energy. He likes to hide in the trees. He had some interesting theories, but it was kind of funny about that granite with the quartz. I don't know about that, but
I'll be right back.
how about the rest of you guys? Any of you out there seen a Matanuska Batman?
Not a Matanuska Batman.
Well, I had a guy come in here and say that he saw one. He didn't call it a Batman, but he said the face looked like a bat. And I just did a little illustration of it just based on what he told me. But that was the newest thing. That was kind of fun. It was actually kind of fun to draw. But yeah.
I noticed it looks like it's got the face of a vampire bat. Was that
what
he described to you? Or because some bats have like a snout?
Well, yeah. See, I had that King Kong mask in my gallery, and I pointed at that, and I said, "You mean a bat like with that kind of nose?" And he said, "Yeah, but it had ears." He said it had short ears. And I almost said, was it a dog man? But
How big?
He said it had the face of a bat.
How big was it?
Legs of a dog, covered in fur, only about 6 feet tall. But he and another hunter, he was hunting moose, claimed that this thing walked out from the other side of the river onto the beach, saw him, and turned around and walked back in the tree line. So I don't know. That was a new one for me.
I wanted to ask everybody. I think I've asked everybody but you so far. Have you heard any reports of Bigfoot fishing, like pulling fish out of the water?
Pulling fish out of the water.
Not stealing other people's fish, but pulling a fishing Bigfoot, a Bigfoot pulling fish out of the water.
I think I swear I've read stories of that. I can't really recall, but it seems like I've heard of them pulling fish out and eating them. But
are you thinking about the one that was in Saxman, Rob Roy?
I don't know.
Dr. Alley had it. He
Stories
talked about
eating fish.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I honestly can't recall one of them pulling fish. I mean, there was one
I
about
can't
them pulling
recall specifically
fish out of a trap, fish off of drying racks, fish out of fish camp, fish that have already been caught. Basically, I cannot recall a story where they have been caught pulling their own fish out of the water.
Maybe they just steal the fish. Who knows?
The general consensus is they're crappy fishermen.
Maybe they are. Well, isn't that the story of why the natives stopped dealing with Bigfoot back then, the natives, because they started, instead of trading fish, they started stealing the fish. I've heard that. And then they start stealing the women and the children.
It's a slippery slope.
Began their demise of being hunted down. So I don't know.
Your Batman story of the Matsu area kind of reminds me of something weird that I had seen here in Fairbanks that I thought looked like a Mothman.
Oh, wow.
When I was working at Michael's Arts and Crafts, I was one of the managers there at the store, and it was close to Christmas time. And the closer to Christmas you get, the later they stay open. So it was like 11:30 at night, and it was really dark out, and I was the last person there. I had waited for a girl to get her ride home before I left, and it had just started snowing, and I was pulling up to the four-way light to pull out of the parking lot there at the mall and across the street, is another parking lot with another mall. And as I was turning onto the street, I noticed that there was a figure on top of one of the one-way signs in the parking lot. And it looked like a person standing straight up, and it was an all black silhouette. He was kind of hunched over, and it looked like, you know, an average sized person. I wouldn't say it was 6 feet or anything, but it was an average sized human like silhouette. But he was perched, like standing on top of a one-way sign, and those things are at least 6 feet, if not closer to 7. And I remember going around the street corner, and I was like, what did I just see? And I like slowed down and looked in my rear view mirror, and it was still there, but you couldn't see any features to it. It didn't have like skin or anything. It was all black, and couldn't see any definable shapes. And the first thing I thought of when I saw it was, it looks like a Mothman.
The Alaska
Creepy.
Mothman.
Yeah. Karis wants to know, do apes fish? I don't know.
Do apes fish? Really?
I don't.
I just Googled it. There's 26 species of primates that have been reported to feed on aquatic and marine flora or fauna.
Oh.
So
I know
wonder how they
gorillas.
do it.
Gorillas
That's
don't
from the-
spend a lot of time around water. They don't even drink a lot of water. They get all their water from their vegetation that they eat. But those are gorillas, inland gorillas, anyway.
Where would they buy their fishing poles anyway?
I know. If there's a Bigfoot out there that's fishing without a license, I guarantee you there's a wildlife trooper that's trying to give him a ticket.
I have heard.
So what's up with the chef hat beans? Are you cooking tonight?
No, it's the theme of the episode. It's the Thanksgiving episode, so we're talking about what Bigfoot eats.
Thanksgiving. Ah, okay. I thought you maybe just got a new hat. It looks good on you.
I was surprised because I was like, well, I'll try it on and see how it looks, and I'm probably not going to wear it. And I put it on. I was like, all right, it's not that bad.
Wow. Well, it's good to see everybody. I didn't think I'd make it, but I figured out it was all in my settings. I had to do a bunch of stuff on my computer, but this thing is kind of my standby machine, but it works pretty good. But I figured it out, even though I probably missed all the conversations.
Missed a lot of it.
Well, we talked
Did I
about
miss anything?
plants that Bigfoot might eat here in the state. So
Yeah, that's one of the things that I miss because all the Bigfoot podcasts now are all like encounters and scary stories, and there's not hardly any podcasts out there anymore. If you guys ever listen to old school Bigfoot, the Bigfoot show with Brian Brown and Scott Harriet and Paul, and those guys would sit around basically and just talk about stuff like this for hours. They would always devolve into a PG film argument, but there were some really good conversations in there where they would just talk about like, well, what do they eat? How do they, survive and stuff like that. There's some really excellent conversations. And anymore, like everything's just, like Cletus, is like, I saw a Bigfoot over there and he was huge and he tried to eat me. And that's like every single Bigfoot podcast out there now. There's hardly any like just discussion of like grounded, serious scientific discussion about how they survive.
Well, and I would be interested to talk to some people that have said that they found scat that they have thought could be Sasquatch scat because whatever the contents are could tell you what they're feeding on in that area.
Well, Rod Roy and I found a pretty interesting scat last summer, or was it summer before last? I don't even remember. It was last summer, and it had seeds in it. But man, it was weird. It looked human. I remember that's what Rob Roy said. He's like, "That's human," and I was like, "It can't
it
be."
looks human. I don't know.
Well, tell us more about it. Why do you say it looked human?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, I guess you could say it looked. My dog has pooped like that before, but it looked more like a human turd. you know, versus
It was
a deer.
round.
It was
And,
round
I mean,
and long.
it was probably about that big around.
And
And it
cross
was,
section.
yeah, and it was long. And
very,
it actually,
I want to say very healthy too.
it actually had striations in it. Like you could see where it had been pushed out. We've got pictures of it. I'll see if I can dig them up and send them to you.
Yeah,
That sounds a lot like what I saw that had the fiber in it.
Yeah, well, this had
Very
seeds. I couldn't tell you what kind of seeds, but it definitely had seeds in it. I don't remember. I think there was hair in it too, wasn't there?
yeah. Well, I mean, it was human enough. We actually went back to the cabin and asked, you know, the other guys if they happened to go to the bathroom up there. You know, just so you know, Beans isn't carrying around a turd in his pocket.
Yeah.
It was in my backpack, not my pocket.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, it was in a bag. Yes, but you know, it did look unusual. I mean, it didn't look like other animal turds out there. So,
Where was it? What was the setting?
It was on a trail, a game trail, and it
was kind of on one of the game trails.
Yeah, I've got. There's a video. I'll send it to you, Norm. There's a video of us actually finding it, and you can actually. It's pretty cool because I'm filming when Rob Roy sees it for the first time. I'm like, hey, come over here and look at this, and I've got his like raw reaction. It's pretty good because he's like, oh, that's human, or that looks human.
It kind of did.
Yeah, that sounds
But
like
you know, you got to make sure. You don't know. The guys are out there. Everybody's hiking around. You don't know. Someone's gonna, you know, have to go to the bathroom.
Somebody's
in the
got
middle of
IBS.
the trail, and I bet there wasn't any toilet paper or wads of leaves or anything laying around.
No, there wasn't any of that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a human did that in the middle of a trail.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think you threw it away, didn't you, Beans?
So I was gonna try and send it off, and I couldn't find anybody that wanted to take it, and I eventually got rid. I should have frozen it, but I had it stored in a tote on my porch, and I kept getting nervous that it was gonna start smelling, so I threw it away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd. I guess you. I don't know. You could have smashed it flat and stuck it in an envelope.
Well,
You know, there was
Goodness.
most
when we
labs don't want you to send poop to them.
When we went to that area out off the Denali Highway, that guy was talking about how his brother said he was feeding a Sasquatch watermelon on the creek side.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he
Watermelon
said
Sasquatch.
Yeah, he said he'd been feeding it, I think, for a few weeks.
Wow.
He would leave it on a rock next to this creek that came down their property. They had apparently just bought the property, and his brother was kind of out there clearing the land and had seen this creature down by the river at one point. So he left watermelon out there for it, and he started leaving it out there for him on a regular basis until he couldn't have watermelon anymore because of how remote the area was. And I don't know if winter hit and he couldn't get out there, or if he was snowed in or something. So
Yeah, that's got to be something that would probably blow a Sasquatch's mind up here because I don't think there's
Candy.
any water. There's no watermelon in Alaska, is there?
Unless someone grows it in a hot
Yeah.
house.
Well,
course, I
I
mean-
know somebody who does in a greenhouse.
yeah. I mean, if they're also, I mean, there's high bush cranberry out there and blueberry and raspberry. So, watermelon is a much more subtle sweet flavor. But it definitely would be a different kind of texture, for their palate for sure.
Well, given their penchant for berries and for sweet feed, it seems like Bigfoot does have a bit of a sweet tooth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bobo always said that Bigfoot likes donuts. He'd always leave donuts, on finding Bigfoot.
Interesting.
Who doesn't like donuts?
That's what we need to do. We need to get into a habituation situation where we're giving them donuts and sweet feed and all kinds of till the Bigfoot gets diabetes and then he gets slow enough that overweight enough he can't move and we can catch him.
I'll bring my bag of
You got the boxes of cereal in a tree. I've heard that before too.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, you missed the discussion on the Zagnut bar. There's a gentleman, I can't remember. There's a thermal footage out there somewhere of a Bigfoot reaching over like a stump or something, and there's a candy bar up there. And for some reason I thought it was a Zagnut bar. Maybe it was another kind of candy bar. But I was telling these guys, like, in 45 years, I've never seen a freaking Zagnut bar like in a store. Like, I've never seen one in real life.
Well, here Michael's used to carry it. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
I like Zagnut, but I blame Beetlejuice for that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the first place I ever saw one. I didn't think it was a real thing. I thought it was just something they did for the movie. And apparently they're a real candy bar, but I've never seen one. There's a Bigfoot out there somewhere that has tasted a Zagnut bar, living in the woods and pooping on the ground. And here I am, living in the cradle of civilization, and I've never tasted a Zagnut bar. All right, guys, we've been going for an hour and a half. I think we're going to have to wrap it up. We're talking about pooping in the
I'm
woods.
glad I could make the last 15 minutes or so. It's good to see all of you guys.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah,
we'll do it again. We'll have a Christmas special or something. I don't know. We'll do something, and we'll all get the band back together again.
Yeah.
So before we go, let's go around, and I want everybody to give at least one thing that you're thankful for. It doesn't have to be crypto related, but whatever. Jesse, you go ahead and go first because you're the first in the lineup.
Okay. What am I thankful for? I'm kind of thankful for being about like halfway done with my master's program. It's been a lot of hard work. So I'm glad I'm glad that I know how much longer I have before
you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. And for a while there, it was just like, what am I doing? What did I get myself into?
Well, I'm glad you're there. You're getting there. You're almost there.
Norm, what about you, sir?
I had been putting off a project for a customer I did not want to do. He wanted a cat balcony, of all things, in the shape of the front of a pirate ship. And I put it aside forever. It became my white whale. And finally, the last couple of days, I've been working on it here at home. That's why I'm in overalls. And I'm almost done. And I'm so glad to finally have that behind me.
That's awesome. Is he going to let you name the boat, or does he got a name for it?
He doesn't want my name for it. No, I think I'm going to leave that up to him.
Should call it the SS Meow Mix or something. I don't know. I got nothing. Rob Roy, what are you thankful for, sir?
What's that?
What are you thankful for?
What am I thankful for? Well, I'm thankful that I'm thankful I'm still open and I'm still doing well in business.
Awesome. Yeah. Bigfoot Art Gallery in Palmer, Alaska, everybody. Heidi?
It's been really busy. It's been really busy. Actually, today was busier than I thought it would be. But it keeps me out of trouble. That's all I can say.
I'm thankful that I finally have some free time carved out. A lot of my summer projects have come to a conclusion, and I'm getting ready to work on a new project, which is starting my own YouTube channel in regards to high strangeness and not just cryptids. There'll be some UFO and some paranormal things that don't really have what I would consider an in the box type of category. It's just a high strangeness thing that occurs. And so I'm getting ready to start putting those out, and I'm thankful to be able to do that finally.
Yay.
Yeah. I've thought about doing like a true crime, like law enforcement podcast, but I don't think the internet's ready for that yet. Michael, what about you, sir?
No major health problems this year, so continued good health. Family, friends, I'm in a good job. making a lot of money for what I do. I got the appropriate amount of responsibility that corresponds to the pay. So I'm really thankful for that. Thankful that I got most of my chore list done before it snowed and turned into this below zero, although I need to cut some more firewood, but that's kind of always an ongoing thing. Just thankful that we can have little discussions like this and just good friends.
All right.
Nice.
So I'm gonna go. I was thinking as you guys were going, I was like, I should have went first because somebody's gonna say what I'm gonna say, but nobody did. So I'm actually thankful for the Boreal Bigfoot Research Group and all you guys. I love our little chat group. And ladies and gentlemen, I just told these guys yesterday, like, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast tomorrow night. You guys want to be on? And here, look who all showed up. I mean, that's pretty good considering the short notice and the lack of planning on my part. So I think this
one person from the group.
Yeah. And I think it turned out great. We had a great discussion. I think this video is going to do really well. I think people are going to find it really interesting. I'm going to go back and listen to it again, I think. So thank you guys so much for being here. And I appreciate everybody that watched. Head over to Alasquatchpodcast.com website. You can pick up a little something for your friends that are interested in Bigfoot, some Christmas gifts. We're going to have a Black Friday sale, so be sure and swing over there and check out what's going on. Rob, you having a Black Friday sale?
Oh yeah, well, every day is a Black Friday sale here.
All right. Anybody? So Heidi, do you have your channel name or anything? Somebody was asking for a sublink. You're just putting it together.
The channel is going to be called the Preternaturalist. But I don't have it set up yet. It will be set up by the end of the year. I'm still getting my programming and stuff set up on my computer for that. So once I do have it ready, I will be posting it on my Facebook page, in the Bigfoot Facebook groups, the UFO Facebook groups that are all on Alaska by state. So you can check for it there, and probably even the Bigfoot Expo website. I might post it up there too. So.
Jesse, you got anything you want to promote? Books, anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, I have some stuff that I'm working on or whatever, but it's all just little side projects that aren't done yet. I do. If you want to get something of mine, you can go onto Amazon and pick up my book. It's called Saucers of the North. It's a history of UFOs in Alaskan airspace. It's
a good book. I've sold out. I got to buy some more.
So, yeah. Or you could go to Rob Roy's shop, and he sometimes has copies there.
Yeah, I think he said he needs some more.
Them out. People love that book.
Good.
Yeah. You know, I just gave a copy to Bart LeBon, and he was one of the legislators, but I think he's retired at this point or something. Or was he a House rep? I don't know. All right, he was a politician. How about that?
Norm, you got anything you need to promote, buddy?
I got a couple books out there, but they're not Bigfoot or cryptid related. I'm working on 3 right now simultaneously that I'm very excited about, but they're a ways out yet.
All right. Rob Roy, you want to tell people about the gallery?
Oh, well, the gallery will be open Friday, so come on in. We've got all kinds of Bigfoot swag and art and stories, and we even have guitars and other things here. But it's a fun place. Everybody that comes in seems to really enjoy it. So we really enjoy working here. So we must be doing something right.
I wish it wasn't so damn far away. I would come in. I'd drop in a couple times a week probably.
Yeah.
I'd be like
you'd
a
be
house,
working there.
I'd be like a house cat. Yeah. Heidi, you've already done your YouTube channel. Anything else going on?
No, not really. Right now, it's basically my YouTube channel is what I'm focusing on. I mean, I have all kinds of art projects in the works. It's a shame I don't live closer to you, Rob, because if you needed a custom framer, I'd totally love a job doing that. But no, I don't have any other projects in the works. I'm pretty much focusing on my YouTube channel right now.
Hey, Rob, if you ever want a 7-foot tall painting of a Saturn V rocket, I have one that's ready to go. I don't know who my customers are going to be for that, but I had to paint it. So I built
That one
it.
might have to go on eBay. Yeah. Michael, sir, anything for you?
SasquatchTracker.com is open 24/7, 366 days a year on leap years. I am not having a Black Friday sale. I'll go skiing instead. Other than that, I wish everyone well for this holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that. So that's all I'm promoting. Just good cheer.
All right, guys. I'm going to
Yeah.
call it there.
Report your sightings to Sasquatch Tracker.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Get your sightings out there. Come forward. So Bigfoot's got to eat. Beans has got to eat. I'm going to go have some dinner. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate you. I loved our conversation tonight, and we will definitely do it again. So with that, everybody say good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Happy
Good night.
Thanksgiving.